Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Coach Chris Turbo, aka Mr. Turbo Speed, aka Coach Chris Burris. And I wanted to thank you guys for stopping by my channel. So if you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and do your coach a favor and turbo smack that like button and power punch that notification bell so that you can take advantage of all my coaching, training, speed enhancing workouts here on YouTube. So today's video, we will be discussing the top strength and conditioning resistance training exercises for sprinters. So if you're a turbo speedster, go ahead and sit down, grab your notepad, take some notes, because we're going to take a deep dive into my exercise prescription so that you can run faster. Alright, turbo speedsters, so top strength and conditioning and resistance training exercises for sprinter speed, to increase sprint speed. Alright, so for today's video agenda, we are going to be tackling these core concepts. Terminology, we're going to define specifically what I believe strength is. We're going to define what your training goals are, and essentially you're going to answer the question, why do what you are doing? If you're doing exercise prescription, if you're an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're learning, you want to define your training goals, and your training goals should be answering why do what you are doing. So if you're not doing something that's going to benefit your training goal, don't do it. The next thing on our video agenda here, we're going to be taking a look at detailed exercise prescription. My top 3 best exercises for increasing speed, the biggest bang for your buck as a sprinter, as a turbo speedster, what you should be doing in the weight room to get faster, stronger, and dominate on the field, the court, and especially on the track. So my top 3 exercises for detailed exercise prescription: exercise 1, exercise 2, and exercise 3. Then we are going to establish a lifting criteria. This should answer the question, why does this matter? Why do these 3 different exercises matter to you as a athlete, as a coach, as a turbo speedster? So we're going to take care and look at all those components. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about defining strength and what I believe strength is, essentially. Okay, so defining strength. Strength is the maximal force the body can produce against a load. Alright, so you use strength training to increase your force development. And you can do that in multiple different ways within your 52-week program, or however you're doing your programs, either a 4-week, 6-week, 8-week, 12-week cycles, 90 days, whatever it happens to be. So strength is broken down into 3 particular regions that I believe speedsters need to be aware of. So we're going to talk about absolute strength. Alright, so absolute strength is what you can consider your 1 rep max work. Okay, the max amount of weight that you can lift, either in the eccentric load, the concentric load, or all the totality of the lift in general. Alright, so absolute strength, how strong you are for 1 rep, exerting the most maximal amount of force per lift. Okay, so the next one we want to talk about is speed strength. Alright, so speed strength is the body's ability to rapidly apply force. Alright, you want to literally move the most weight that you can possibly move without hindering your body's natural functionality, natural biomechanics, essentially. So you want to lift and move light loads as fast as possible. Alright, this can be done through plyometrics, bodyweight exercises, and or loads of 10 through 40% of your 1 rep max, moving as fast as possible, building up to those higher loads without compromising good technique and form, and not hindering your optimal biomechanics when you're doing these lifts. The last component of strength we want to talk about is strength speed. So strength speed is the neuromuscular system's ability to produce the the greatest amount of force in the shortest possible time. The way you train strength speed is to move relatively heavy loads without compromising functionality, technique, and your biomechanical movements throughout the course of the exercise. And you want to use loads in between 40% to about 70%. And when you're taking into consideration the different loads, 60% of your 1 rep max should be the load, the maximum load that you should use if you're using standard strength, absolute strength building exercises such as the bench press, squat, deadlift. And 70% should be the absolute max that a athlete should be using if they're putting those loads into Olympic lifts such as the power clean, hang clean, snatch, jerk, any of the Olympic lifts. So those are the key elements of strength: absolute strength, 1 rep max work, speed strength, moving light loads as fast as possible, from 10 to 40% of your 1 rep max as fast as possible, and strength speed, the neuromuscular system's ability to produce the greatest amount of force within the shortest duration of time. And you train that by using loads anywhere between 40% to 70% of Olympic lifts, or 40% to about 60% of your 1 rep max if you're using conventional strength training exercises. All right, Turbo Speedsters, so moving along, we want to talk a little bit about training goal and why that's important. And to kind of go back to the agenda we set up, define the training goal so we can explain why do what you are doing when you're creating an exercise prescription for yourself or for your athletes. All right, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'm going to breeze through this. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below, and I will reply back to you, or hit me up on my Facebook and or my Instagram handle at Team Turbo Speed. All right, so training goals. The thing that you need to remember about training goals is everything that you do on the track or in the weight room has to have a purpose, right? And the things you need to consider when you're talking about your training goals in general are number one, what time of year are you currently in? Okay, so are you in preseason? Are you in off season? Are you in an active transition phase? Are you in a competitive phase? Are you about to peak? As a coach and an athlete, you have to have cognitive recognition of what time of year you're in, and that correlates to what number 2 is, what phase you are in, right? Are you in your preseason phase? And those two kind of they correlate together, but you need to be cognizant of what time of year it is and what phase you're going to be starting your training, or what phase of training you're in currently, right? And then the last thing you need to address is tip number 3, basically, is does the exercise prescription satisfy the training goal within that phase, right? So you don't want to be doing plyometrics and heavy loads and working absolute strength if you're in a hypertrophy phase, right? Or if you're in off season and you're running fast every single day, that's not conducive to your ultimate training goal. If you define your training goal as foundation building 4 to 6 weeks, right? So that doesn't make sense. So just keep in your mind, identify the training goal. You identify your training goal and you say, okay, if my goal is speed for the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is the time frame and the phase, I'm going to select exercise prescription that is going to meet my needs within that training goal within that phase. All right, so keep that in mind as you're writing exercise prescription for yourself, for others, if you're a coach or if you're a parent. All right, so next we want to talk about the detailed exercise prescription, my top 3 exercises that every turbo speedster, sprinter should be doing in the weight room, regardless of training phase. And we're going to start off with exercise number 1, the king of all exercises, the deadlift. Every athlete that is speed oriented should be doing and incorporating the deadlift into their training regimen, training protocol. I am a fan of the straight bar deadlift, okay? It's more conventional, it's more biomechanically correct versus a trap bar. I don't want to put my athletes on the trap bar want to use the straight bar. It's the most primal instinct type of lift that you can do. That's why the straight bar deadlift is called the king of all exercises. All right. In the next segment, we're going to get into why specifically the deadlift and the next two exercises are my favorite. But exercise number one, the king of all exercises, the deadlift and all its variations. So dumbbell deadlift, sumo deadlift, plyometric deadlift. A lot of people don't do this one. I incorporate it into my training. I incorporate it into the athletes that I coach, their training as well. The Roman deadlift, one of my favorites. My all-time favorite variation is going to be the straight leg deadlift, a variation of the Roman deadlift, but it's going to work the posterior chain, which is amazing in sprinting speed and increasing your sprinting speed. And then the single leg dumbbell deadlift, which is very, very important because in any given phase of your 100 meter, your 40-yard dash, you're not going to have both feet on the ground at one time. So training contralaterally and training your single limbs, your left leg and your right leg, independent of each other, is going to help increase your sprint speed. All right, you're going to run faster times. All right, you guys, so exercise number 2 in my top 3 exercises Turbo Speedsters need to be performing in their exercise prescription programs is going to be the leg press. Yes, the weighted leg press, the plate loaded leg press, or the machine leg press. I'm going to get into it specifically why that is one of my favorites and why I personally believe that it should be incorporated as a fundamental, stationary, all year round exercise for increasing sprint speed. But just like the deadlift, you want to do the leg press with the multiple different variations. So you have the wide stance variation, the narrow stance variation, the single leg variation, and again, one that no one ever uses is the explosive leg press variation. Okay, the leg press is an amazing exercise that I do truly 100% believe should be incorporated into any speed, strength, and power development program, and we'll get into why here in a second. All right, so the last exercise of my top 3 exercises that every Turbo Speedster should be incorporating into their workout regimen and their training program will be the almighty squat exercises and its many variations. All right. The squat, just like the leg press and the deadlift, are key fundamental core exercises that will be implemented and should be implemented year-round. If you're doing a 52-week training protocol, they should be incorporated in different variations within each training phase to target every training goal that we talked about. Okay, so the squat. Personal favorites are going to be the dumbbell squat, the barbell squat, back squat, the barbell front squat, the goblet squat, okay? The different stances that you can use in the squat, the wide, the narrow, the stagger. You have the box squat, the split squat, the single leg squat. There's a lot that you can do from the squat perspective to build the muscular adaptations that you need to run faster, just like the leg press and just like the king of all exercises, the deadlift. All right, Turbo Speedsters, so now to get down to the nitty gritty, all right? So that you can understand exactly why exercise 1, 2, and 3, the deadlift, the leg press, and the squat are my top 3 exercises that you should be implementing into your athlete's training regimen and or implementing into your training if you're an athlete yourself, okay? So to put this into perspective, all right, so we define what strength was. We're gonna say that our training goal is to increase maximum strength, okay? We're gonna increase our strength. We're gonna have our training goal be set in the off season, and we're gonna stay in this phase for 4 to 6 weeks, and this is gonna be a maximum strength phase for 4 to 6 weeks in the off season, all right? We're gonna be working specifically on absolute strength, getting as strong as possible for 4 to 6 weeks, all right? With the end result being, let's say, the ability to grow our muscles, hit a little bit of hypertrophy, and also be able to increase our force production as well. All right, so with that scenario, exercise 1, 2, and 3, deadlift, leg press, and squat. Why? why are these the almighty, powerful, speed enhancing lifts, strength, resistance training movements that you should be doing? All right. Number one, they're multi-joint movements. Okay. Moving through all three of these different exercises and their multiple different variations, you're going to be using multi-joints to accomplish each and every exercise. This is important because whenever sport or athletic event that you are doing, it's not going to be one singular motion. It's not going to be one singular muscle group. Not going to be one singular energy system that's working, right? You're not going to sit there and say, oh, I'm a baseball player and I'm just going to use my bicep. I'm just going to use my quad, right? So you need to be in the weight room doing sport-specific movements that are going to be multi-joint movements so that direct correlate to your sport, correct? So the deadlift, the leg press, the squat, the multiple variations of those are going to be multi-joint movements, just like any athletic prescription that you're doing or any athletic event that you're doing, right? So the next one is multiple variations, and each one of these exercises are extremely versatile, right? They can be modified to adapt to or mimic sport-specific movements. For example, in the squat, you can use a staggered squat and use it in an eccentric way to simulate starting strength, okay? Your ability to fire off as many muscle fibers as possible, just like you would do if you were in the blocks, in a 3-point stance, in a 2-point stance if you're a wide receiver, in a 2-point stance if you're a defensive back. Okay, same thing with deadlift can be modified in a sport-specific manner because of the different variations. You can use the plyometric deadlift, right? You can use the single leg dumbbell deadlift to use to simulate any phase of your running, any phase of your sprint. Okay, so within any phase of your sprint, you're not going to have 2 feet on the ground, and that's why you can modify any single one of these exercises, the deadlift, the leg press, and the squat, to mimic your running phases to be more effective when you leave the weight room and get on the track, the turf, or the field, okay? All of these exercises within our scenario are going to accomplish the training goal within 52 weeks, or within this scenario, 4 to 6 weeks. Right? If we're focusing on absolute strength, 1 rep max work, we can load the bar, load the machines on any one of these exercises to accomplish the absolute strength goal. And that goes back to when you're doing training goals, why are you even in the weight room? What are you doing in the weight room? What is beneficial for you as a speedster, a turbo speedster athlete? Why are you in the weight room? Each one of these exercises is going to accomplish the goal of absolute strength, which in turn will mean that you'll be able to apply more force into the ground so that you can propel yourself horizontally and thrust yourself vertically to run faster, increasing your stride frequency, stride rate, and stride length, okay? And the last one, that why all 3 of these exercises are so important to increasing speed, is they all train the posterior chain. Yep. So, posterior chain, your whole entire backside, right? Every muscle from the head down, your posterior chain. The deadlift is going to work the entire body. They call it the king of all exercises for a reason. It's going to work everything from the chest, the traps, the lats, the biceps, the triceps, the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, the calves, everything. But why the deadlift is number 1? Why the deadlift? If any of all 3 of these exercises, if you can only do one and you do the deadlift, it's because one simple reason. You're sprinting, you're running fast, is directly correlated to how your hips function. What's the number 1 exercise in this list that is going to work on the hip hinging motion? Deadlift. Let me put that into perspective. You have your deadlift. You're coming down and up, right? Hip hinging, hip hinging. When you sprint, where does all your motion come from? The majority of your motion. From the hip. Your hip drives your knee up, your knee drives it drives back down. That all starts at the hip, right? So you're here, boom. You're here, boom, right? That's all from the hip. So if you want the biggest bang for your buck and you can't do any other exercises on this list, stick to the deadlift. It's going to work the posterior chain. It's a hip hinging exercise, and it's going to make sure that you're able, in 4 to 6 weeks within our scenario, that you're going to be stronger, able to produce maximum amounts of force to apply back in the ground. And when you enter your new phase, you're going to be able to apply more forces in the ground, propel yourself horizontally, and vertically increasing your stride rate, frequency, and stride length, because you worked on absolute strength, which is defined as the maximal force the body can produce against a load. Leg press and squat do the exact same thing as far as working the posterior chain. You can use the different variations to hit different muscle groups more selectively and exclusively, but for the most part, deadlift is king, leg press is second, squat is third. Only reason leg press is second for me is because leg press does not hurt my knees, and it's less demanding on your knees as opposed to a back squat, a heavy back squat, a box squat, stagger squat, split squat, or a single leg squat, or what have you. So take those into consideration when you're doing your exercise prescription for speed. All right, Turbo Speedsters, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you liked it and you're brand new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, and do your coach a favor and turbo smack that like button and power punch that notification bell so that you can take advantage of all my coaching, training, speed enhancing videos here on YouTube. And like I always say, don't go fast, go turbo.